begin the third Pedic, Pedic Hamaniach, which this Pedic focuses a lot on a person causing damages. The very end of Keter Regel is about a person that is always considered responsible, Adamul La'ilam, and so on. So we're up to the Mishnah here. Hamaniach es hakad b'shus rabim. If somebody places a jug in a public space, and usually a kad is something small, somebody else is walking down the street and tripped over it. And he broke this jug that was lying there on the ground, this small barrel. Potter is potter. He is potter because he didn't, as we'll see, either because people don't really look where they're walking, you should have put it there, or even if people should look where they're walking, but we're talking about a special case where in this case it wasn't his fault. The im huzagba, and if he let's say tripped on it and he got hurt, then Balachav is Chaybiniska, the owner of the barrel has to pay damages. Says the Gemara, first, very just being pedantic. Usually a kad means a small barrel and a chavis is a large one. So the Mishnah starts, Hamanech has a kad, and then it says, and he's guilty. Who's guilty? Bala chavis, the owner of the barrel. Why swap from a kad to a chavis? I'll give you other examples. We do exactly the same thing. We keep on moving around. So two people walking down the street. One guy has a barrel and one guy has a beam. And you're allowed to carry things when you're walking down the street. And what happens? That they somehow or another they bumped into each other and the kad broke. It broke. Started off talking about chavisa, and we changed from a chavis to a kad, and the kad broke. Is potter because they both had a right to walk here. Again, you see, you jump back and forth from chavis to chad. Pasach b'chavis, I'm b'kad. Next one. It's not nami. We learned zebba b'chavis shayai. One guy's walking with a barrel of wine, and the zebba, and this other person walking b'kadosh advash. The other guys, this guy's walking with a barrel of wine. The guy's walking with a smaller jug of honey. Honey was worth a lot more money than wine. Niziga chavis advash. If let's say the barrel of the honey cracked. Now we swapped again from a kad of dvash to a chavis of dvash. And the shavas a yenoi, so the other guy thought it'll help out, be a nice guy. He poured out his wine and he put his big barrel there underneath the kad to trap all that honey, shouldn't go to waste. The hitas of dvash, he saved the honey, and now he turns to the guys, look, I saved your honey, but I lost my wine. Pay me for my wine. Ain't loy elos chari. The only thing I can ask you for is the wages for the time that I spent on it, but I cannot ask him to pay for my wine because he didn't cause the loss. Again, possible bekad beside b'chav. What's going on here? I'm gonna papa. Hainu kad, hainu chavis. It's really the same thing. So the mind of Gemina then. So what's the difference of a kad? What do we need to know? It's the same and not the same. Is as far as lemekach chamemchen. If I go ahead and I say I want to buy a chavis, and we make a deal, shake hands, whatever, and pay money, and then I give you a kad. That's it. You have a kad. A kad is smaller than a chavis, but the words are interchangeable. Let's analyze a second. What's going on here? In a place, in a region. The people, when they refer to a small barrel, they refer to it as kad. When they refer to a large barrel, they refer to it as chavis. So what's it to talk about? If I ordered a kad, you got to give me a kad. If I ordered a chavis, you got to give me a chavis. You can't give me a kad in place of a chavis if I ordered a chavis. The majority of people call a kad, and the chavisa chavisa. The economy, but there are some people, a minority, they call the chavisa kad chavisa, so they swap the names around. So the chiddush here is ma'odim. I would have thought zil basaruba. I would have thought follow the roiv. So the person says, look, give me I ordered a chavis. Give me a chavis because I'm from the roiv. A chavis is a chavis, or a kad is a kad. Nevertheless, when it comes to money matters, majority is not good enough. I'm not going to change things around because of if we're not 100% sure the way it should be. It's only probability that you meant a chavis, you taka meant a chavis, because most people when they say chavis mean a chavis, doesn't work that way. You want to get your money back, you have to prove roiv is not good enough to take your money back. So, which we're going to have also in later on in the Gemara in the Mems, is a similar subject. So whoever the mitzi is, so if he paid the money already, he wants his money back. He's the mitzi. If he didn't pay his money yet, and the guy who's selling it, gave him a chavis, oh, give it back to me. I want to give you a kad. It doesn't work that way either because you have to prove it. Whatever it is, you have to. Whoever wants to take out A Moitzi is the one who has to go ahead and prove whatever their case is. This is actually a very difficult concept that Ein Hochamam Nacharov. As Traces here in many places in Shas asks and everyone discusses. When it comes to din in the fashas, we learn in Pesach and Daf Yud we'll have a Sanhedrin. If 1/8 says it was the second day of the month that this happened, this murder happened, the other one said third day of the month, we're going to continue with 8. Why either contradicting each other? The time is so important. Because you say most people make a mistake of 1 day. They didn't know when it's Chodesh is. So what do you call it? And we're going to kill somebody based on the fact that the Raiv, the right people make a mistake of a day. So we're killing based on the Raiv. If it comes to money matters, we're not going to follow the Raiv to say, okay, this proves in all probability that this guy is saying the correct thing, give him his money back. But when it comes to din nefashos, if Raiv cases are so and so, we're going to continue with the Raiv. Like we learn a chulin, how do you even know Raiv? So you're not allowed to strike your father. You know for sure this is your father. The Raiv bilas acharabal. So based on the Raiv, we're going to say this is your father, and we're going to punish you accordingly. So how is it possible by din nefashos we're going to follow Raiv? And when it comes to din mammon, which is a lot lighter, we say no, Raiv is not good enough. We need 100% proof. Very difficult. Or so basically, Taisa says when Taisa talks about here about a bezin, by bezin we follow Raiv. We just say Enoch Mamlach Raiv. When you have a bezin, we're going to say if 2 judges say this and 1 judge says that, we're going to follow 2 judges. I thought Enoch Mamlach Raiv. So that Taisa comes up with the idea that by a bezin, miyut keman de lesser, the 3rd judge, the dissenting opinions is non-existent. And the Achreim tries to understand why. Why is it different than the Raiv and miyut? So they explain, Tzas's brother wrote Kuntas Asfeikas, which is a whole thing about these kind of things, but others as well. They explain that now that the Torah says that the Bezin, the majority say one way, you have to follow the Bezin, that becomes halacha, then this minority opinion has no opinion because he cannot take money or go follow his track record. And when the Bezin gives out a psak, in fact, you're not allowed to even say that so when Bezin gives out a psak, it's the entire Bezin who paskins. So the meat is no longer there. What's the svar? Why by mammon ain't hoch mammon Raiv? Because there is it's a miyut and the cheskes mammon. The fact that money is by you, your possession is 9/10 of the law. I want to take it away from you. So first of all, there's a chazaka that's opposing the laws of probability, plus the miyut is supporting you, and the miyut combined with the chazaka overrides the Raiv. So some of the Achreim ask an interesting question. When it comes to a suffix isser, we're always mach. If the din is that you have no right to the money, because let's say this guy takas from the miyut, and therefore you had no right to have that money, so it's a suffix isser because you might be a gazlan. A gazlan, to be a gazlan is an isser. Like the Torah says. So the as a suffix isser, you should be machma, give the money back. Maybe as far as mammon is concerned, say we don't follow laws of probability, we're not going to take the money back from you just because probably the money doesn't belong to you, belongs to that person there. The Gemara later talks about I bought a cow. Most cows you people buy is for agriculture. Sometimes you buy for shchita. So he sold me a wild cow that I cannot use to go plow my field. And the guy says, I don't care, Raiv. You're stuck with this wild animal. So but if this guy says, I'm from the Raiv, and you had no right to sell me an animal that is not cannot be used to plow, then you're a ganef. And if you're a ganef, then it's a suffix iser. Suffix iser should be machma, give the money back. So they answer, when are you considered a ganef if the halacha says you have no right to keep that money? But if the halacha says, that's the halacha, which means the halacha says in this instance you're allowed to hold on to the money, then you're no longer a suffix ganef. There's no ganef at all. It's not that you're a suffix ganef. There's no ganef at all because the halacha says that you can retain that money. Okay, let's continue. Taking about it further, the Mishnah says, if somebody else is walking down the street and trips over your barrel and breaks your barrel, you potter. The question is, why you potter? Am I potter? You should have looked out where you're walking. If the onus is on the person walking, you should look in front of him. So I have 3 answers in the Gemara here, which basically mean they all agree that a person should look out when they're walking, but this case is a case of an accident. For example, this case this answer is not that an accident. The guy populated the entire Shus Rabbim with his barrels, and it's impossible to walk without breaking through his barrels. And that guy had no right to block off the Shus Rabbim. Answer number 1. Answer number 2. Shmuel says, "Ba'afelish was at night." It was an accident. Rabbi Yochanan was a corner, so when he turned, he couldn't see it. Now, Taisa says we learned before, Adam Mu'ad La'ila, a person is always responsible, whether there's an accident or not an accident. So who cares if it's at night? And who cares if the corner? So it's an accident. But Adam Mu'ad La'ila. So that proves the shit of Taisa, not like others Ramban, that says that there are degrees of oinus. If the oinus is a regular oinus, then we say that the person is responsible. But if it's like a complete oinus, like over here at night or a corner, then you're potter. And he says, just like a shame of we have Geneva and Aveda. Geneva is mamish like an oinus. It's not your fault. Somebody stole it. Aveda lost is like a bit negligent. It's your fault. So those kind of oinus which are similar to Aveda, a person is responsible for. Those kind of oinus that are similar to Geneva is not responsible. And that's why, and he proves it that a shamer, chinam, was transporting a barrel that he was minding from point A to point B, and it breaks he is potter. So he should be chayiv as mazik. Okay, he's potter as a shayman because a shayman chinam, but he broke a barrel. That proves that certain einzin you have examples. So the Gemara here. So the Gemara our papa like they can our mission will not conform. Will only work out according to Shmuel or according to Rabbi Yochanan. And why is that? Because he can have. So both Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan hold that a person has to look out where they're walking. But here it was an accident. It was an accident, a night corner. But the Rav said there's no accident here. The guy filled up the street with barrels. He had no choice, so he walked his way through and he broke a few barrels. So Gemara says, our mission is not working with the Rav, because if it's Rav, my idiot Niska, why is he trip? I feel a shavanami. Even if he deliberately walks through and breaks it, he's also potter because you have no right to populate the street and he has to walk. Yet Amish says Niska, so only because it was an accident, he slipped. Rabbi, that's not right. Who had the truth of the matter if he did deliberately, he's potter. I said, why did the Mishnah say an accident? I think Niska. Because the second part of the mission is that what happens if he hurts himself? The owner of the jug is responsible. That's only if it was an accident. But if you deliberately went and kicked and then you hurt yourself, you're kicking that. Then that even though the guy had no right to place his object there, nevertheless he is a potter from what you did. It's like bird, yeah. The high dictory niskul, I did the boiler is safe. In the next case, the mission is being whoozigba. If the guy who was walking on the street, he tripped and he got hurt by that barrel. The owner of the barrel is liable. When is the owner of the barrel liable? Dafka only niskul, only if he tripped. But if he was breaking it deliberately and then he got hurt by it, then everyone agrees you don't have to pay. My timer, because he harmed himself. So because of the sefer, we have to talk about a case where you tripped. So in narration, Niskul says narration also Niskul you tripped. You tripped, yeah. Chase is asking an interesting question. Just like we asked the question, why is he potter if he's walking? Should look where he's walking. Why don't we also say, why should the owner of the jug be responsible for this guy getting hurt? You should have looked where you're walking. So Teresa says the obligation of you should look where you're walking is you shouldn't cause damage to others. Not so much that you shouldn't cause damage to yourself. So if you're walking, you got hurt by something somebody put down, that person is responsible. You can't say, "Oh, you should look where you're walking." No, there's no right to put it there. But if I'm walking and I break something, you can say to me, "You should look where you're walking. Make sure you don't break other people's things." So you have to be more careful, not harming others than not harming yourself. Well, that's the nature of people generally. Talking about it further. Till now, you guys all said, "Well, that a person has to look where he's walking." Ula said. People don't look where they're walking, and therefore, not don't do with nighttime, don't do with a corner, not because you populate the street. You place the jug in the street, and somebody walks by, and gets what do you call it, and breaks it. They are potter because they don't have to look where they're walking. It's not their responsibility. So we have a fundamental argument here. Have you been a doy? There was once an incident in a doy. Shmuel. There's once an incident in a doy, and Shmuel was Mechayev, the one who got hurt. No, during the day he was walking, and he what do you call it? And the guy slipped and broke the barrel. Shmuel made the guy pay. The only time you pay is when at night you couldn't have seen, but during the day when you should have seen, you could have seen, even though that guy had no right to place on the ground. And we had a rule before: if somebody's Mishana and somebody else is Mishana, you're potter. That's by an animal, not by a person, and therefore you're responsible. Shmuel, this something happened b'chai Rabba. So Shmuel holds like his halacha, which is that a person has to look where they're walking, and I'm talking about when you couldn't have seen, it's an oinus. Rabba lema Shmuel, so really Rabba holds like Shmuel. But a papa karna the atzav. No, Rabba does not hold shmul. Rabba can very well hold like Ula. You don't have to look. Rabba can hold like Ula that says that a person walking down the street doesn't really have to look, and if you break something that's lying there, shouldn't have been there, he is exempt. He's exonerated. So how come Rabba in this case in Pumbedisa was Mechayiv? It was a special case. What was that? It was kind of it was a corner where right next to the olive press, the Kivin the Beshushkav, a lot of people line up when the season comes in to press the olives. They line up and they while they wait in line, they put their barrels there on the ground. So therefore, they have a reshus as if it's an unwritten agreement in the public that people are waiting in line. They can put their barrels there. So that guy had a right to put the barrel there, even though it's in the street. And therefore, in that case, Rabbi said you should have been careful, and therefore you're responsible. You should have been careful and look where you're walking. Otherwise, we paskin like Ula that a person walking down the street and somebody else puts something on the street and the person walking breaks it, he is punished even during the day in broad daylight because he doesn't have to. It's not his responsibility to look where he's walking. You had no right to put it there in the first place. Says the Gemara. Even though when it comes to an animal, we're going to learn later on, an animal should be looking out where it's walking if it's broad daylight, but an animal is looking always to the ground. In Chassidus it says that an animal never sees the sky. Doesn't know there's an Eibishter in the world. He never looks up. People, on the other hand, when we're walking, we're always looking ahead. We should also see what's above us. So therefore, because Shemayim is happening for Kale and we see the Eibishter. Animals don't. So therefore, an animal sees what's going on underneath. We're not necessarily looking down. Even there's a famous letter of the Ramban to his son, how a person should behave. And there he writes, a person should always look down, not look at other people, be humble, and so on. Rav Chida said to Nachman the following question. We have a number of penalties. I want to know what the penalties would be in the following case. Hadi Amru, they say, if somebody gives somebody a kick, let's say with his knee, is sholish. It's embarrassing. You have to pay 3 sloim. Will it be if you give a kick with your foot is even more humiliating? Chamish. We're going to penalize you for kicking that other person with your foot, that you have to pay 5 sloim. If you take the saddle of a donkey and you smack somebody with it, you got to pay sholish esrei, 13. What about the pound of the motor, the handle of the shovel, or kapin of the motor, and the actual shovel itself, and you hit somebody with it? What's the penalty then? Shalach Rav Nachman, who was the head of the Bezin of Bava. Remember, we had the end of the first pedic that we don't rule on penalties in Bava, only in Israel. What's all these penalties? Shalach chizah. He said to him, "Chizah, my friend. Knossa, Kamagbi, Baba, what are we talking about here? What are these penalties you're talking about? What's the story? What's the incident? Sholachle said to him, yes. Who got gusu the beitrei? You had over here, say, a cistern that belonged to 2 people. Each day, someone had it. They alternated. Mondays, this guy had a right to draw water from the Tuesday. The other guy had a right. They alternated. One day, the person who had no right to draw water that day came decided to draw water. The other guy said to him, today's my day. There's not enough water for everybody. He said, today's my day, tomorrow's yours. They asked me, refused to listen. That what happened was that the person whose day it was his entitlement took a shovel and gave a guy a whack over his head. Malay, so Nachman said back to him that the famous concept of Ovid Inish Dina Lanafsha, you're allowed to take law in your own hands when you're 100% right. And you're allowed to even beat the other guy up, not just take whatever is your right, but you're allowed to beat the other guy. You can take 100 shovels and beat him. And Nachman, even the one who says that generally speaking, you cannot take the law in your own hands, you got to go to the Torah. Malcolm said everyone agrees if you're going to have to wait for a din Torah, by the time you din Torah, whatever the loss is, you have a loss of it in like a restraining order. You get an injunction to stop the person from doing it because meanwhile you lose money. Of it in people can take the law in their own hands in that instance. In this case here, the water is not enough water. The guy continues drawing the water, won't be anything left. So there's a pseida hefsid. You permit to take the law in your own hand. You're allowed to even beat that person. Says the Gemara. What am I talking about? Rav Yehuda says, a person cannot take the law in their own hands. Rav Nachman says, so he's only quoting his own opinion. Rav Nachman says, you're allowed to take the law in matters in your own hands. Hey, Chadikip say if there's a matter of a lawsuit, by the time I go to the to settle it, and everyone agrees you can take the law in your own hands, do whatever you have to do to protect yourself. Keep you know that again, when there's no loss. Rav Yehuda says, there's no loss. Go to bed and keep like a pseida laser kamedina because there's no loss. Wait, go to the trader and go follow up. There's a process. And Nachman says, "Ovid inish dinah you're permitted to take matters in your own hand. Kiva the bedin of it, since you're 100% right, like you don't have to bother. You don't have to bother. So, and that's not halacha, by the way. That you've made to take it all on hand. You're allowed to even beat someone up to get it back, provided that you are 100% sure that this is the case. And you provided that you're 100% sure that if you go to trader, you would win because you have enough evidence. If you don't have enough evidence, or you're not 100% you're winning the trader, maybe you can still be typhus, but you cannot beat somebody up. Beating, there's two parts here. Being typhus, something that belongs to me, and the other part is actually hitting somebody to prevent him from whatever. Hitting somebody only if you would have gone to the trader, you would definitely, hands down, black and white, you have your evidence this thing belongs to you and he owes it to you.
You still have Dina de Machusa Dina, no?
That's something else. We're not going into Zimachos. Then you got to follow rules. We're talking now just about what afi halacha, and then obviously if it contravenes Zimachos, then you got a problem.
Beat him until he can get his water, or beat him even after he gets his water?
No, only to get him away. He should no longer take water from here. No, he shouldn't take away wait till Tuesday because you'll dry the well. And the Sameh actually learns that Dina the Malchut. Sorry, he says that when we say you can take it away, a beating is dafka in front of witnesses. But if it's not in front of witnesses, I can grab it. I don't even have to have all this 100% because I always have a migoy. I could have said I never grabbed it; it was mine all along. I never took it. If nobody saw him taking it, you can go. Another thing they say is when you say dimachos adina, let's say the guy owes you money because he's renting from you and doesn't want to pay you, so on. But if it's a loan, he owes you $100 in a loan and he hasn't paid you, then you cannot go ahead and grab. Because we learned before, the Torah says you got to wait outside before you take a mashkin. You can't just go into the person's house. But what we're talking about over here is the guy stole your object or the guy owes you for somewhere else and you took it. Okay, so we're going to ask a whole bunch of questions on Rabbi Yehuda. Moshe of Tana ben Bagbag Ben Bagbag says, interesting, the Tana ben Bagbag in the Pirkei Avos. There's another Tana there's a Tana in the Pirkei Avos called Ben Hey. And they say that Ben Bagbag and Ben Hey is the same person because the letter Hey. So who was he? He was a Geir. And by a Geir, they're children from Avram. And what's so unique about Avram is we added a Hey to his name. So therefore, he's called Ben Bagbag or Ben Hey, son of Avram. So Ben Bagbag, Bagbag says you're not allowed to enter somebody's property to take your item without permission. Because it looks like a ganef. Ella, what you do, shavar shinav, the emeloi shali ani noitel. Go in and break the guy's teeth and take. I'm taking mine. So it's a clear proof that Ovid inish arayit Rav Nachman that Ovid inish dinul nafshe. You're allowed to take the matters in your own hand, and even though there might not be a loss, if it's sitting in the guy's house, you can go to Bezdin and it'll get in a week instead of today. There's no loss. Not like the case of the water. If you don't do something very quickly, it'll dry up the well. So clearly it proves Rav Nachman that Ovid inish dinul nafshe, but 100% is yours. Amalei, he answered back. He answered back. He said, "What? You're so happy? You think this is how it is?" Ben Bag Ben Bag is a lone opinion. Who argue? In fact, they agree with me that you cannot break his teeth. Rabbi Yana says, "Who said breaking his teeth means physically breaking his teeth?" And you decided you take the laws in your own hands. Rabbi Yehuda might be right. You know what Ben Bag is saying here? My shavar shit, break his teeth, but then go to the Torah and make sure that you win and he loses. And it's an expression, break your teeth. Says that's very weird because so the wording is so wrong. Why does it say the it says over here, tell him that I'm taking my own. If it's the bezin talking, it should be in plural. Should have said that we say to him, look, the guy is taking his own. And not shaliani noitel, shalayu noitel. If it's the bezin talking, it's a third party. The kasha. So the second answer is shvach. But the first answer is the bagbag's alone opinion. Next question. Tashma coming here. If one shoyer, an ox mounted another shoyer, lahargai. Right? So shoyer of Reuven is standing on top of shoyer of Shimon, is ready to kill him. So came the owner of Shimon's shoyer, which was on the bottom. Pulled out his animal. As a result, the nafal elyon, the animal on top fell down. The mason died. Pot. The animal dies. Pot. So I took. So he looks like he's maybe hitting him or something. My labamua. I mean, what kind of animal would do that? to be so violent to go on top of another animal. Probably an animal who has habitual gorer is a mu'at. And by a mu'at, so what you did here, you took you don't run to Bezin, you took the law in your own hands. And here there's no loss. What means no loss? The animal on top is about to kill the animal on the bottom. But because the animal on top is a mu'at, he's going to pay full compensation. So what's the big deal? So you lose different one cow, another cow. You lose the cow, you buy yourself another one. So there's no loss here, and yet we allow you to take the matters in your own hand. Doesn't that support Rav Nachman? Dilma, the Lekab say there's no loss here. Says the Gemara, who said? Loi, but Tam, the Gemara said, don't matter Tam. Now, if the animal on top is a Tam and the animal on the bottom dies, you'll only get paid half. So you're about to lose a lot of money. That's why you're permitted to take the law in your own hands. And everybody agrees, even Rav Yehuda, where there's a loss, you're about to incur a loss, do whatever it takes to save your cow. So anybody so a Sefer, we're talking about the Tam. Tell me the next part. It says, but if you instead of pulling out your cow from underneath, you went to the cow on top, you pushed the cow off, the cow fell down and hurt itself and died. Chayiv, you're chayiv. Now the betam, if we're talking about over here, by a tam, my chayiv. Why are you chayiv? If we're talking about a tam, in other words, there's a loss involved here. If I don't do something, I'm going to lose half of my animal. And you just said everyone agrees that you're allowed to take matters in your own hands. So if I push the animal on top of, well, what do you mean I'm chayiv? I did the right thing. The Gemara, no. When do we say ovid inish dir nafsha when you have no alternative? Here you did. What you should have done is taking your animal underneath. Then there's less chance that the animal on top is going to fall and die because it's straight up. But you pushing it off, like head first or something. So even though we ruled that ovid inish dir nafsha, and everyone agrees where there's a loss, you're permitted, but there has to be no alternative. Not if there's an alternative. That's true. That is true. Okay, we'll stop paying tomorrow, Mr.